Do you ever walk into a room and forget why you went in there? Or maybe you struggle to remember names, or where you put your glasses, even though they're on your head. You're not alone. At 82, I used to worry my mind was slipping, but today, I feel sharper, more focused, and more mentally alive than I did in my 60s. In this video, I'm sharing 7 simple daily habits that help me go from foggy and forgetful to feeling like my mind is 50 again. These tips are backed by science, but more importantly, they work in real life. Stick around, because tip 7 is the one that surprised me the most, and it might just change your days too.
Hi, I'm George. I'm 82 years old. A few years ago, I started forgetting little things, people's names, where I put my keys, even the date. At first, I laughed it off. Senior moments, right? But deep down, I was scared. I watched my older brother battle memory loss in his late 70s. I didn't want that to be me. So I started making small changes, nothing fancy, just everyday things. I read a little more. I went for walks. I talked to neighbors. I even started learning about music again, something I hadn't done since I was a teen. To my surprise, within months, I felt different. My brain felt brighter, more awake. I could recall stories better. I had more to talk about. I felt alive. So today, I'm sharing what worked for me. Not as a doctor, but as someone who's walked in your shoes and found a better path. Let's dive in. Tip 1. Read with purpose, like your brain depends on it. Reading is one of the easiest, most powerful ways to keep your brain young. And I don't just mean scanning headlines or skimming the newspaper. I mean really reading, sitting down, turning pages, and letting your brain get to work. Let me tell you something personal. When I turned 78, I noticed I wasn't as quick with words anymore. Sometimes I'd be mid-sentence and lose my train of thought. It was embarrassing, especially around my grandkids. I felt like my mind was starting to rust. So, one day, I made a simple promise to myself. I'd read something on purpose every day, not just flip through ads or scroll through TV captions. I wanted to use my brain again. I started small, first with short articles, health tips, gardening blogs. Then I moved to books, biographies, science, even some history, things I never thought I'd enjoy. I remember one day I read about honeybees, how they communicate through dance. It blew my mind. That night, I told my granddaughter about it. Her eyes lit up. We ended up spending 20 minutes just talking about bees. I felt proud. I felt sharp, and the science backs it up. According to a 2020 study published in Neurology, older adults who read regularly, especially challenging material, show better memory and slower cognitive decline than those who don't. Reading actually strengthens the connections between brain cells and can delay memory loss by up to 32%. Think about that. Something as simple as a good book can actually protect your brain. Now here's the trick. Don't just read anything. Read things that make you think. It could be a classic novel, a religious devotional, a book about birds. Anything that draws you in and keeps you curious. And don't worry if you have to reread the same paragraph 3 times. That's part of the workout. Just like walking strengthens your legs, reading strengthens your mind. So if you haven't read in a while, start today. Tip 2. Move your body, move your mind. I'll be honest with you, I used to think that exercise was for younger folks. In my 60s and even early 70s, I thought, why bother? My days of running around are over. But let me tell you something, I was wrong. After I turned 75, I started feeling stiff all the time. My knees ached, I'd get winded climbing the stairs, and worse, my mind started to feel foggy. I couldn't focus during conversations, and I'd forget what I walked into a room for. One day, I saw an article that said walking just 30 minutes a day could lower your risk of dementia. I thought, can something that simple really help? So I gave it a try. I started small, just 10 minutes walking up and down the street. The first week, I huffed and puffed. My legs felt like lead, but I kept at it, rain or shine. A month later, I could walk the whole block without stopping. I started noticing things around me. A bird's nest in a tree, kids riding bikes, the smell of flowers blooming. My brain was waking up, and the science backs it up. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, Regular physical activity improves brain function, reduces anxiety, and increases your ability to learn and remember things. In fact, a study in the journal Neurology found that seniors who engaged in regular physical activity had a 34% lower risk of cognitive decline. You don't need a gym. You don't need fancy equipment. Just move, walk your dog, dance to your favorite old song in the kitchen. Do gentle stretching while watching TV. Even housework counts. Vacuuming, gardening, sweeping the porch. It all adds up. Tip 3. Eat like your brain needs fuel, because it does. I used to eat whatever was easy. Toast, coffee, maybe a pastry from the corner bakery. I thought as long as I wasn't hungry, I was doing fine. But I often felt slow, like my brain was stuck in first gear. One day, my daughter, a nurse, sat me down and said, "Dad, your brain needs real food. Not just calories, but nutrition." I'll admit, I rolled my eyes at first, but I decided to give it a try. I started small. I swapped the toast and butter for a bowl of oatmeal with some blueberries and walnuts. Then I added a boiled egg or two. Within 2 weeks, I noticed something surprising. I wasn't dozing off mid-morning anymore. I could remember my neighbor's name without hesitation, and I had more energy to walk to the park after lunch. What I didn't know at the time is how powerful these changes are for brain health. Let me break it down for you. Blueberries. These little things are like brain vitamins, rich in antioxidants, especially flavonoids, which protect the brain from aging and improve communication between brain cells. A study published in Annals of Neurology found that older adults who ate more berries delayed memory decline by up to 5 years. Eggs, one of the best sources of choline, a nutrient that helps with memory and learning. I now eat boiled eggs almost every morning. And no, they're not bad for your heart like folks used to say. In moderation, they're excellent. Leafy greens, spinach, kale, collard greens. They're full of folate and vitamin K. One big study out of Rush University Medical Center found that seniors who ate 1 to 2 servings of leafy greens a day had the brain function of someone 11 years younger than their age. Fatty fish. I didn't grow up eating salmon, but now I have it once a week, baked with a little lemon and herbs. It's high in omega-3s, which help build and protect brain cells. The American Heart Association recommends fish like salmon, sardines, or mackerel at least twice a week. Not just for your heart, but for your mind. Nuts and seeds. I snack on walnuts or almonds instead of chips now. Just a small handful. They're packed with vitamin E, which helps prevent cognitive decline. Even dark chocolate. Yes, chocolate. In moderation, dark chocolate, 70% cocoa and up, improves blood flow to the brain. I have a small square in the evening with my tea. It's a treat and a brain boost. Tip 4. Stay social, even when you'd rather stay home. After I retired, the quiet was nice at first. No more alarm clocks, no more traffic, no more rushing. But slowly, I started noticing something else. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt empty. I would go whole days without speaking to anyone. My phone hardly rang. Sometimes I'd go to bed, realizing I hadn't said a word to another person all day. I told myself I was fine. I like my space, but deep down I felt lonely. And honestly, a little sad. It wasn't just me. According to the National Institute on Aging, social isolation in older adults can lead to a 50% increased risk of dementia. That hit me hard when I read it. I realized this wasn't just about loneliness. It was about my brain health, my well-being. So I made a change. It started small. I wave more at neighbors. I call my sister every Sunday. I even forced myself to go to a local community potluck. I'll admit, I almost turned around in the parking lot, but I'm glad I didn't. That night, I laughed more than I had in months. Soon, I joined a chess group at the senior center. I wasn't very good, but nobody cared. We joked around. We shared old stories. One gentleman, Bob, is 87 and sharp as a tack. He says it's because he never shuts up. I think he might be onto something. It's not about being the life of the party. It's about connection. Just talking, listening, laughing. Even sharing silence with someone else can feel like medicine. Research from Brigham Young University found that strong social ties are as important to long-term health as quitting smoking, and even more beneficial than exercise in some cases. Imagine that. Just having coffee with a friend can be as good for your brain as walking a mile. So don't wait for someone to knock on your door. Call your old friends. Invite someone for tea. Join a local club, even if it's just once a month. Or just sit on the porch and chat with a neighbor passing by. I know some days it feels easier to stay in bed, turn on the TV, and not deal with anyone. But I promise, even one good conversation can brighten your whole day and protect your mind in ways you can't even see. The soul needs connection, and so does your brain. Tip 5, get curious. Be a student again. You know, when I was younger, I thought learning ended after school. You go to work, raise a family, and that's that. But I've learned, especially after turning 70, that curiosity is the spark that keeps the brain truly alive. Let me tell you a little story. When I turned 80, my granddaughter gave me a paint set for my birthday. I laughed and told her, "Sweetheart, the only thing I could draw is a crooked stick figure." But she insisted, and I didn't want to disappoint her. So I tried. My first watercolor painting looked like a soggy sandwich. But something happened. I felt excited, challenged, even a bit nervous. And that feeling, it was new. That's curiosity. Every time I picked up that brush, I wasn't just painting, I was training my brain. I was improving hand-eye coordination, memory, patience, and problem solving. And you know what? I started to look forward to it. I even joined a small art class at the community center. Now, I have friends to paint with, and we even hold little exhibits. Not bad for an old guy who couldn't draw a straight line. And it's not just painting. One of my neighbors, she's 79, recently started learning Spanish so she could talk to her new daughter-in-law. She says she feels like she's waking up a part of her brain that's been asleep for 40 years. Isn't that beautiful? The science backs it up too. Research from the University of Texas shows that older adults who learn something new, like photography or quilting, improve their memory significantly after just 12 weeks. Not by doing crossword puzzles, but by learning something challenging and unfamiliar. It doesn't have to be big. You could learn to cook a new recipe from another country, try basic computer skills, or how to use a new app, take up bird watching, and learn about different species, even try learning how to play a simple musical instrument. I recently watched a YouTube video that taught me how to play Amazing Grace on the harmonica. And let me tell you, when I played that first note right, I felt like a kid winning a prize. Curiosity adds color to your life. It makes your days interesting again. It gives you stories to tell and reasons to smile. So ask yourself, what's something you've always wanted to try but never got around to? Maybe it's time to give it a go. Remember, you're not too old. You're just getting started. Tip 6, rest your brain the right way. If you ever wake up feeling groggy, confused, or just not yourself, even after a full night in bed, you're not alone. As we age, sleep becomes trickier, but it's also more important than ever for brain health. Let me tell you a little story. When I was around 76, I started waking up at 2 or 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, unable to fall back asleep. I would toss and turn, get up, watch TV, maybe eat a little something. I thought it was normal, just getting older, I told myself. But over time, I noticed something. I was forgetting things more. I'd walk into the kitchen and forget why. I couldn't focus when reading. And worse, I started feeling moody and tired all day. Then I read something that stopped me in my tracks. Lack of quality sleep can shrink your brain over time. In fact, a study published in the journal Neurology found that poor sleep in older adults was directly linked to a higher risk of memory loss and even Alzheimer's. That was my wake-up call, no pun intended. So I made a few small changes. First, I started going to bed at the same time every night, even on weekends. Our brains love routine. It helps the body know when it's time to shut down. Second, I turned off the TV an hour before bed. That one was tough because I love my detective shows. But the bright screen was tricking my brain into thinking it was daytime. So instead, I switched to listening to soft music or gentle nature sounds, birds, rain, ocean waves. I also stopped drinking coffee after lunch. I used to enjoy a cup around 5 p.m., but caffeine stays in our system longer as we age. Now, I sip herbal tea like chamomile or peppermint before bed. It helps me relax, and honestly, it's a nice little ritual that tells my body it's time to wind down. Another thing I started doing, and I recommend this to every senior, is keeping my bedroom cool and completely dark. I invested in blackout curtains and a little fan. Cooler temperatures help your body fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. And if you wake up in the middle of the night, which I still do sometimes, try not to panic or reach for your phone. Just lay still, breathe slowly, and remind yourself that rest, even if you're not asleep, is still good for the brain. Here's something that amazed me. According to the National Sleep Foundation, adults over 65 still need 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep each night. Not just lying in bed, real deep sleep. But many seniors don't get that because of irregular habits, too much screen time, or untreated sleep issues. Once I started following these simple steps, I felt like a new man. I woke up clear-headed, in a better mood, and my thoughts flowed more easily throughout the day. Even my family noticed. My daughter said, "Dad, you're finishing your stories again." That meant a lot. So if you want your brain to stay sharp, don't underestimate rest. Think of sleep as your brain's housekeeper. Cleaning up, organizing memories, and getting rid of mental junk while you sleep. Start treating bedtime as sacred. Create a wind-down routine. Let your brain rest deeply, and it will reward you when you wake up. Tip 7. Practice mindfulness, even just 5 minutes a day. This last tip might sound too simple to matter, but I promise it made one of the biggest differences in my life. A few years back, I was constantly anxious. My thoughts ran wild at night. Everything from worrying about bills to wondering if I locked the front door. I'd lie in bed tossing and turning, waking up more tired than before. Then my granddaughter, who studies psychology, introduced me to something called mindfulness. I'll be honest, I thought it was nonsense. Just sit and breathe, I told her. That's not going to help me remember where I put my dentures. But she insisted, so I gave it a try. I started small, just 2 minutes a day. I'd sit in my favorite chair in the morning, close my eyes, and pay attention to my breath. In and out. No phone. No noise. Just quiet. And do you know what happened? I started noticing things I hadn't before. The birds outside my window, the warmth of the sun, even the sound of my own heartbeat. And slowly, I began to feel less stressed, more grounded, more present. That simple act, sitting still, helped clear the mental clutter. And when my mind was less cluttered, I could focus better. Remember more. Stay calmer in conversations. Science backs this up, too. A study from UCLA showed that older adults who meditated regularly for just a few minutes a day had more gray matter in parts of the brain linked to memory, attention, and decision-making. Another study from Harvard found that mindfulness reduces cortisol. That's your stress hormone, which can harm memory when it stays too high. Now, mindfulness doesn't have to mean sitting like a monk. You can practice it while washing dishes, walking in the garden, even sipping tea. It just means being fully present in the moment, not stuck in yesterday, not worried about tomorrow. Here's how I do it now. Every morning, I sit for 5 minutes with my hands on my lap. I close my eyes. I breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, and breathe out for 6. If my mind wanders, I just gently bring it back to my breath. No judgment, no pressure, just stillness. And I'll tell you what, after a few weeks, I started handling life's little hiccups better. A missed appointment? No panique. A forgotten name? No shame. My mind feels more in control now, and more at peace. If you try just one thing from this video, I hope it's this. Give yourself a few minutes of silence every day. Your mind works hard for you. Let rest. Let breathe. Let be still. You don't need a fancy app. Just sit, breathe, and be. Because a calm mind is a sharp mind, and you deserve both. There you have it, 7 habits that help this 82-year-old feel young in mind again. You don't need to do them all at once. Start small. Start with one, whether it's walking down your street, calling an old friend, or just picking up a book. Every little action adds up. Aging doesn't have to mean decline. It can mean wisdom, clarity, even growth, if we care for our minds the way they deserve. Thanks for spending this time with me. If one of these tips spoke to you, leave a comment below and let me know. You're never too old to feel young again, and your brain is still ready to grow.